1-1. I need to get that 2-1 record tonight when he plays the Giants. So go Packs.
Yep, good game between those two. It's good to see them like really battling it out. I think that the Packers, to me, could be one of those surprise teams this year. He did go out and do what he does, and that's draft 55 running backs. I do like the Lions' chances this year. You can already see the Packers are 1-1. The Lions are 2-1. So I think the Lions are showing that they are for real, and that last year was not a fluke for winning that division, and it should be a really good one. Dwayne, which one stuck out to you, weeks 1, 2, or 3?
It's the New York Jets and Eagles game in week 2. It was a barn burner. And what I thought was really interesting in the game, the quarterbacks had just ridiculous numbers. Sam Darnold was 452 yards passing, 5 touchdowns. Carson Wentz was 355 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a pick, which what I think is really interesting about this matchup is the week before, and this is probably a first time ever, Darnold threw 6 interceptions the week before, no touchdowns, completely flipped the script. Wentz had 0 touchdowns, 4 interceptions the week before, completely flipped the script again. So you're talking about 2 teams that really need the offensive boost after a week 1 where it was just god-awful. And there had to be a loser in this one, and I know Andrew at this point is not with us right now, but both these teams had to come out of this one as a positive, just because you had, like I said, you had such god-awful week 1s that even losing week 2, 49-43, you got to look at a little bit of a moral victory there for the Eagles, knowing that they turned that around. If you look at some of the stats, like I said, I told you about the quarterbacks. But the Jets had Crowell with 13 attempts, 84 yards, a touchdown. Livings, 10 attempts, 42 yards. Josh Gordon, the new signee for the Jets, 8 receptions, 151 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's showing Clyde that he made his money's worth with him. Robbie Anderson, 6 catches, 145 yards. And Enuma, 97 yards on 2 catches. Literally almost had 3 guys with 100 yards that game. You're talking about an offensive explosion from the Jets. The defense got at it too. Not got at it enough, apparently. Jenkins had 3 sacks. Malden had a sack. Leonard Williams, Claiborne even had a sack. Copeland had a sack. Jenkins had 4 fumbles. If I'm not mistaken, he was player of the week that week. You go up to the Eagles. Pumphrey, he didn't run near as well as the Jets did. Like I said, that could have been a telling tale at the end of this one. And I think turnovers. Turnovers got this one. I didn't look at the turnover factor. If I'm not mistaken, the turnovers were 2-1 in favor of the Jets. And like I said, in a 49-43 game, that 1 turnover is huge. Pumphrey had 13 carries, 30 yards, a touchdown. Clement had 6 attempts, 22 yards, and a touchdown. Jeffrey and Aguilar led the way receiving for the Eagles with 189 yards and 2 touchdowns and 126 yards and a touchdown, respectively. You go down there, Graham, Hicks, Cox, Bennett all had a sack. Man, this was just an exciting game to watch. I watched this game personally. It's not my type of game. I would fire my defensive coordinator if I had a game like this. But it is, especially on Clyde's side. I know Clyde struggled last year. Kind of picked it up late, and then week 1 he comes out with his new pieces and just lays an egg. I hate to say it like that, but lays an egg, loses. If I'm not mistaken, week 1 he lost 10-35 to the Cowboys, and Darnold just had as bad of a game as you could get. And so it was really nice for him to bounce back with this game and show the AFC East that he's not to be forgotten. And like I said, the Eagles look at their roster. The Eagles have a lot of pieces, and if I'm not mistaken, did you just award them to Savante?
Yeah, I did, and actually while we were on the show, Zip, Andrew, whatever he kind of goes by, did message me. He is going to need to take a break. So that is going to be an official thing. He's going to help us out with the calculator. He'll stay in the apps chat and the main grown folks chat. But yeah, he will be leaving, and Savante will be taking over a team with a lot of talent.
Yeah, like I said, I think that has to be a positive thing to look at. I know he's going to the NFC East, which is just a gauntlet of a division. But that is a step up for him going from the Cardinals to the Eagles. The Eagles have weapons to play with from day one. And, I hope he can build on this game and take it to the next one. Like I said, this was just a fun game to watch, but it would be a very frustrating game to be in defensively.
Yep. I think that those games happen sometimes, not all the time, but I do think that there are some games where just for reason it clicks, right? And I've definitely had those games where it clicks and it feels like it's clicking for both teams, no matter what you do. Like nothing seems to work, and this was definitely one of those games where things were clicking for both of those teams, and neither team wanted to play any defense on this one. So some good games to look at. We are going to be into week 4 by tonight, and so lots of good games left to come. There were some pretty brutal schedules. I know that there was some schedule talk early when we got into the preseason, and guys were just kind of laying out their schedule, but there are some pretty brutal schedules that are out there, which kind of brings me to my next point, and that's to talk about our top teams in both the AFC and NFC. We know that things change quickly, and things can change in the blink of an eye. Literally, the other day I was having a conversation with an owner of we've had the same group of guys for a very long time, 8-9 months. It's been a while, and then all of a sudden, literally overnight, we're probably going to lose 2 long-term owners. And then in my conversations with Zip, even during the show, I told him I'd leave him in the chat and stuff, and he made it sound like he's never going to get to come back just because of I think he's kind of lost his passion for the game, and life happens, right? And life kind of takes over. Things can change in the blink of an eye, and because of that, we know that season 81 is well on its way, and 82 is way far. 80 is way far in the rearview mirror, which means that we need to figure out who's going to be at the top. The Dolphins have already kind of flipped the script. The Raiders are back on top. The Steelers have turned the corner. The Jaguars are playing real. Just the AFC. The Cowboys seem to have it all together there in the NFC. The 49ers and Seahawks are back strong as ever. The Lions are showing that they're no fluke. And look at the Panthers. They're right there at the top. So let's talk about it. Dwayne, give me your top 3 teams in the AFC as we go through season 81.
Well, right offhand, like I said, a lot can change, especially we're only in week 3 right now. But I have in no particular order, the Jags, the Colts, and the Dolphins. I think if you look at them, they pretty much all have one thing in common, aside from my Colts not being real great defensively right now, is the Jags are number 1 in total defense in the league right now, and the Dolphins are number 3. That's just a telltale thing right there. The Jags are 10th in running, and the Dolphins are 5th in running. And I think that just shows you a recipe for success right there out of those 2 teams, that they can run the ball, they play good defense. And my last telling stat on them is both teams, the Jaguars are +9 in the turnover ratio right now, and the Dolphins are +8. So you add all 3 of those together, it's a perfect recipe for success. You run the ball, you play defense, you don't turn it over, and you make the other team turn the ball over. And I think that's why, the Jags and Dolphins are just – the Jags have just come out of the box average. I think they're only giving up. I think even before the Titans game where they did give up, I can't remember how many points they gave up, 27. They were only giving up 5 points a game for the first 2 games. But if you still add that up, you're talking about 37 points through 3 games. You're giving up 12.5 points a game. That's really, really good. I think the Jags alone right now, if I had to pick a top team in the AFC, and I know that might surprise some people. It might not surprise some people. The Jacksonville Jaguars be your most dominating AFC team right now outside the box. I think he's coming out with a vengeance after getting beat in the playoffs last year. And I think he takes we always talked about Brady is when he gets the playoffs that he just can't get over that hump. And I think he used that as a little bit of fuel to start this season. Because he's come out of the box hot and he's ready to roll. And it's nice to see Kevin the Dolphins, after such a rough last season. He's came out, he's played real good, he's ran the ball with his new number 1 overall quarterback. I don't know if you can write a script any better to start this next season. So we'll see if it continues. And like I said, there's a lot of teams in the AFC you could have put in these top 3 spots. It's early. Changed my mind, guys.
Well, my top 3 is pretty much the same, mostly because they're all undefeated. Dolphins sitting at 3-0, Colts 3-0, and the Jacksonville Jaguars at 3-0. And they're no particular order at the moment. This is just a early, ranking. Miami, like you said, like Dakota was saying, Miami does have one of the top-ranked defense. They're only 10 points per game, a total of 245 yards allowed each game. So that's always a good, especially when you have an offense that's not as powerful. I know Kevin was talking about his offensive line not being the greatest last season, and not sure if he made any moves to help that out. This is also a plug that I do have an offensive line on the block. Brandon Sharif. He's 1 year remain. He is up for re-sign, so just come go in DM me if you're interested. Back to the Dolphins. What's interesting, he did win. His 3 wins are all from divisional games, his rivals. So he's setting pretty good over in the AFC East. Now we got a 3-0 division lead on top of he played the Bills twice and the Patriots once. So he did get that upset. I know no comp. He's adjusting post Tom Brady retired. So he's having to adjust with a new quarterback. But I'm sure he'll get back on, get the wheels turning again by the end of the season, just the way he's been playing ever since he's been here. So I wouldn't be surprised him, being in the top 5 or at least fighting for a playoff spot at the end of the season. Colts, they're just the same old Colts like they were last season. I'm not sure how Dakota does. He just if you look at his roster, it's just mediocre guys, and he still wins. But he's averaging 28 points per game. He's allowing 16 points, but that's still a good combo of the way his offense has been playing. I did watch that first game with the Texans, and Luck got hurt, or he got luck, or Dakota got lucky because Luck was only hurt for that game. Going down the stretch, I think if you look at his schedule, he does got some tough games coming up. He's got the Raiders, and once we advance, then he's got Chargers. He's got to play Titans, Bill again, and then Falcons. I know that's a team. They started off hot last season, and then now they're kind of 0-3. I think had a one computer law, or no, it was Saints. Nate played them. So he does got some tough games coming up, and especially that Week 8 game against the Jags. The Jags, not really surprised to see Brady at the top. Just the question remains, I think, for everyone that's on the list is can they sustain it through the season? He's always has a tough defense. Right now, Dagley, he's got it as ranked second, only allowing 12 points per game. He was in a battle against his division rival Titans in Week 3, and he squeaked by. I think won by 3 points. What's main, I guess, the stat line for the Jags is his quarterback, his rookie quarterback. I guess it's Hassan or Hanson Watson. He leads the league in pass completion percentage at 78%. So the way Brady on offense, the way he calls, runs, that's a good combo for his running back core. Question just remains: if you look at his schedule, he does got some tough teams as well, and he plays still got to play the AFC West. Then he also in Week 8 he plays the Colts. So you can always you can go ahead and tap that as the game of the week. Because that would be a big game for the not only for the AFC South, but for the AFC alone.
A quick question before I give my answer. How much of all of these, because I was going to pinpoint some teams, and I still could, right? Like the Dolphins, the Raiders, the Steelers. We could even throw the Titans for the opposite reason, the Bengals for the opposite reason, the Jets for the opposite reason. How much of where we see the standings in the AFC right now is because of schedule, and whether that's a light schedule or a really tough schedule?
Yeah, I mean, I think the way they got scheduled this year, if you look at it, well, not for me, for the Redskins, but just going off from the Jags, the Colts, and the Dolphins, they all played divisional teams right in the beginning. So they get the divisions. AFC is getting to beat up each other in division, and then they, start playing the opposite conferences throughout the season. I do believe the way the schedule is, it really can determine how well your season goes. For me, I always start sluggish, and then sometimes I can end on a good note. But by the time I start winning, I already have enough losses to knock me out of playoff contention. I think several other teams we can talk about, especially like you said, the Bengals. He did play the computer Seahawks, and he lost. And I think he lost to the Ravens. Yeah. So those are two big losses right there. And if you want to look at his schedule that's remaining, and he did make a big move and got Cousins. I think he said Andy Dalton is out.
Mm-hmm.
He still plays. I think the rest. No, yeah, he has played AFC East. Those are going to be some tough games, especially in the stretch down the road. He plays the Colts in Week 12. Then he plays Ravens again, not until Week 14, and then the rest of his division rivals. So he needs to start, I guess, turning around and getting back if he wants to compete later on in the season. That's not saying that he can't. We all know the way Cincy, the way he has a roster built to win, and I won't. Same thing with the Patriots. I'm sure both of them will get things turned around, and will start competing. And just now looking at all, Patriots 2-1, so they're already got a winning record. After I was just talking to him about the Dolphins win earlier.
Yeah, I think that, the question is, who are my top 3 teams in the AFC for season 81, not where are my top 3 teams in week 3 of season 81. So, look, I still think that the Bengals are going to be a powerhouse. I would go, as my, I still think that my number 3 team is going to be the Bengals. I know that they're 1-2. I know they've got some injuries. I know that there's some issues there to work out. I just don't trust the Jaguars. I think he'll be in the playoffs. I just don't think that he'll be one of the top 3 teams. I don't think that he has an opportunity until he proves me wrong to actually make it and represent the AFC in the OMFL Bowl for season 81. Same with the Dolphins. This is not personal. I love Kevin, but Kevin has teased me with this before, right? A powerhouse team. Yes, he's got the rookie quarterback. He's on fire right now, 21 points for, 10 points against. He's sitting at 3-0. I mean, he's playing really, really good football. Let's talk again in week 8, and then let's talk again in week 14, right? Like, let's just take this in gaps, and right now he's doing his part. I think my number 2 team is going to be the Patriots. He represented the AFC in OMFL Bowl 80, and I don't, until he falls, right, I think you got to keep him up there in those top 3 teams. He's doing a good job. He's at 2-1. He's having to play different style of football. You can see 14 points for, 16 points against. That's kind of hurt him, right? It's not the same team that he had last year. I just think that no comp will get some things figured out. My number 1 team is the Colts. I would not have allowed Dwayne to be on this show ever again if the Colts were not in those top 3 in everyone's conversation, because they are the top team in the AFC. I know that he didn't represent the bowl team from the AFC last year, but he just wins. He is the most consistent, boring, predictable player that you will ever play, and you can't stop him. You cannot stop his runs. You cannot stop him from being efficient with his pass. It doesn't matter what quarterback that you give him. He's going to win more games, way more games than he loses. He is the Bill Belichick of the OMFL, and nobody can figure out how he makes it happen. But week in, week out, year in, year out, the Colts will always be, whatever team Dwayne has, will always be atop of whatever conference he's in. Let's talk about the NFC, guys, and let's talk about our top 3 teams. There are a couple teams that are playing good football. Of course, the 49ers. The Seahawks CPU team has been just obliterating people. The Seahawks are gone on a little birthday vacation, and his CPU team is just killing folks. The Cowboys are playing good football. The Lions, again, showing they're not a fluke. And then the Panthers are really flexing their muscles atop the NFC South to show that they're back. They have a full-time target in this wide receiver that they've got, and man, they are just figuring things out. So, Dawson, give me your top 3 teams here in the NFC.
Yeah, to me, it's a little bit, messier than the AFC. AFC, you got those clear favorites. NFC, obviously, you got to put 49ers at the top spot right now because they're still winning, and they just won the trophy last season, so they're at the top. once you get after that, it's kind of a guessing game. Yeah, you got the Panthers. Colin, he changed things up a lot. I think he's won more games now, or he's tied more games than he won last season. So he's got things turned around. But like you said, the way the schedule is, it could be just the way he's the teams he's played. He played me in week 1 and he won, so that's obviously a tough opponent. But if you look at the schedule, he still got to play the rest of his divisional teams. He got a nice win over the Computer Seahawks. DJ Moore had 18 receptions that game.
And Bill about lost his mind whenever he read that stat. Like, Bill about had, like, I didn't even see Bill, but I could imagine that, like, his face just literally began to melt off whenever he read that DJ Moore had 18 receptions.
Well, he had 18 receptions, 284 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But if you look at the computer, Lockett, he had 4 receptions, 126 yards. So it was just a big passing game, and it just kind of went back and forth. And you see the Panthers won by 3. And Mo's import Gillette, I think he's up for a contract, so I'm hoping he's going to let him go. He's like, I think he's leading the league in sacks. He had 2 sacks that game and even a forced fumble. But if you look at overall at the remaining schedule, he's got some tough opponents he's got to play. He's still got to play the Falcons, which I don't think right now he's on a losing end, 0-3 right now. But I'm fairly sure he's going to turn that around, just the way he's been playing last season and even the year before. When he had those Colts. I guess you can say the third team until Mo comes back and plays with his team. I know he's kind of rebuilding, and he already he's getting ready and prepped to build that monster team like he did last cycle. He has his overall team right now in Dash League is 71 overall, and he's still winning. He has a better record than I do. And that's just a computer. He's got a lot of guys up for contract, but that's not to say he has a plan going forward. But so yeah, overall, I would have to say those are my 3 top teams, and I do see them competing overall throughout the season. 49ers at the top spot, Panthers in number 2 spot, until they play the Falcons or another tough. Overall, they got to play. I guess the AFC South has to play the NFC South, so there's going to be some good quality games at the tail end of the season, and then the last spot I'll have to go with the Seahawks until we see otherwise that losing trend throughout the season.
My God, did something just explode? It's your turn, D-Wayne.
Yeah, I was getting my little stuff together and refilling my coffee cup. Yeah, I have a couple teams that are a couple of them might shock you, or I guess you'd say, but some of them probably won't surprise you. I have the 49ers probably coming out as top, I think, until somebody knocks him off in the NFC. He's undefeated. He's came out the block playing strong. He's first in the run this cycle. He's 5th in total defense. He's +7 in the turnover ratio. I just think he ain't missed a beat since his championship season. I think he rebuilded. He got some discount solid players in the offseason. If I go with the next team, like I said, I'm not going in particular order. I think you have to go with your Saints, Nate, especially being 2-0-1. It really should be 3-0.
No, I blew that game.
I hate to bring that one back up to you. But like I said, and this is with your offense ranking towards the bottom right now. If you could get that offense going, it could be really scary. But your defense is playing solid. You're +5 in the turnover ratio. I just think you're playing real well right now. I think that NFC South, is going to be something to look at this year. The Panthers playing solid. Your Saints, the Bucks are something you can't look at, and the Falcons could win 13 straight knowing him and finish the season at 13-3. I'm just not going to sleep on his 0-3 right now, but I can't put him in my top 3. But my third team right now is going to be the Panthers, and I say this for one reason. I think he's won the games he's supposed to win so far. I think him and Dawson had a really close game. But But I think the Panthers are a team that scare me just for the fact of Moore and the fact he's third in total offense so far this season, and second passing. And we know Colin isn't a surprise owner. It ain't like he's just a new guy who just came on the block and won a couple games. Colin's a guy who we've seen the strategy of him, not having a great season. He comes back, picks up some solid players, and then goes, on the 12, 13 win season. We've seen it before. He had a couple seasons last cycle where he was just really dominant with the Panthers. And I just can't sleep on that. I know that it would be easy to say that he can't sustain what he's doing with Moore. And, I play him later this season. And if there was a double team or triple team option, it would happen. He would beat me with somebody else. He would have to. But it's hard to look at a team that's second in passing, third in total offense. His defense leaves a lot to be desired, but he is fourth in stopping the run. And that's something that is really overlooked. I think if you looked at all these teams, 4 of the 6 teams I've named today, they're all in the top 8 in stopping the run. You got to stop the run to be successful. If you let a team run all over you, there's no worse feeling than, I can live with somebody airing out on me because they're living and living and dying with that passing game. But if a team can run on you, there's nothing more gut-wrenching than having somebody just tear you apart 5 yards at a time. And so far, the Panthers are stopping that. And like I said, I think he's established enough that I can overlook his down year last year. There's a method to Colin's madness. He's been trading picks away this year to bring in people. He's in a win-now mode, and I honestly think you could have 2 teams that are 12-win teams out of the NFC South. There's 3 teams I think could do it. I do think the Falcons will turn it back on. I don't think they'll win 13 in a row, like I said earlier. It's a possibility. I don't see it. He just got to figure out some things. But I think there's 3 teams in that division that can be really dominant teams. And right now, the Panthers and Saints are leading that way. So, like I said, 49ers, till somebody knocks them off, that's my team to beat in the NFC. Yep. And then you got, my old 2 NFC South rivals coming up the next 2. I just think they're 2 dominant teams. The Saints are a more complete team all around, I think, because you're not going to split offensively. He's going to pick it up. I think the Panthers are one-sided, especially with McCaffrey going down with the injury for, I think, maybe like this whole season. I think he's like 24 weeks. He tore something.
Yeah, I heard that.
He's gone, and I think he's going to be really one-sided with Moore. But until somebody can stop Moore, I think he's going to keep throwing to him 20 times a game.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of break my own rules and not break my own rules. I do think that, I'm trying to think of this of all of season 81 and not just of week 3 in 81. And I think you've seen the AFC, the same can be said of the NFC. There's definitely some surprises, and we'll talk about this on the next podcast when we give these teams a couple of extra games. But, excuse me, there are definitely some early surprises for season 81. So my first team, this is where I'm not breaking my own rule. I'm sticking with the Seahawks. They're 2-1. I think they've only played one of these games. I know the rest have been CPU. I know he's been out, but look, Mo is there every single year. He's the Dwayne of the league part 2. He's always there. He's always going to have a dominant defense. He's always going to have a dominant offense. I mean, the guy won 4 Super Bowls in a row and got really deep into the playoffs last season before running into the 49ers. He's going to make the 49ers earn this one. They're my number 3 of my top 3 in the NFC. My number 2 is where I start to break my rule, right? I don't trust the Cowboys yet, but there's a number that sticks out to me that I just can't ignore. 31 points for, 12 points against. You can't ignore the 2-0 start when you're scoring 31 points a game and you're only allowing 12. Now, it could be said the level of competition hasn't been amazing, but he's beaten some pretty good teams, and he's just played really consistent football this early. He's yet to get week 3 in, but you can't ignore 31-12. 31-12 is what it is. That is a pretty big gap in the competition level of this league. That doesn't come easy for you to be able to do that. That is rarefied air that only a few teams can actually pull off. And then my number 1 team is the king of the hill, the guy that you can't take down until he proves otherwise. 3-0, the San Francisco 49ers. And I'm going to point to another stat that I just pointed to, the Cowboys. 36-13, right there on your screen, friends. 36 points for, 16 points against. This guy is unbelievable what he is doing. He went out and he signed him some new players. I know he was talking about on his show the fifth quarter. Let's take a second and give props to Cincyberg and Big Hurt for doing that. They started on their own doing a show called the fifth quarter. They're still working on production and figuring all that out, but man, just props to them. It's a good long, like hour and a half, 2 hour show. They put it out every couple of weeks. It's a lot of like buy now, sell now type things, and just good conversations about trades and injuries, and it's a really, really good show. Exclamation mark OMFL fifth, number 5 TH quarter. In the chat, that'll pull up the fifth quarter show, and you can watch it. It's also on the Twitter. It's also on the blog, so you can go find it in a variety of different ways. But props to those guys for doing that. Shout out. I listen each and every week. I was a little disappointed you guys didn't talk about my Saints this week. Since I'm not going to talk about my Saints, I need somebody else to talk about my Saints. But seriousness, great job. And the San Francisco 49ers are my number one team, and they are going to be a beast of a team. They just seem to have all the pieces put back together, and they've really got some things figured out, and they're my top team here in the NFC. And again, there are some early season surprises here, and there's a lot of football left to be played. We're not even through the first quarter of the season, and there's too much that can happen through the remainder of the games. I mean, yeah, there's just a lot of football to be played, and who knows all what's going to take place. That takes us to our owner-submitted questions for Season 81. To be honest with you, I didn't even get a chance to check and see if anybody submitted. We did blast it out to everyone yesterday. It does look like we have a couple of questions. Of course, Mr. D. Wayne, he's got some questions. He says, what do you think you need, or do you think that you need an elite quarterback to be successful in the OMFL? Dawson, I definitely want to hear from you. And D. Wayne, I wanted you to kind of explain why this was a question to you and kind of what are your knee-jerk reactions.
Dawson, you taking that one first?
No, I was going to throw it to you first. Like you submitted the question. No, it's okay. Like why the question and what are your like initial thoughts on why what you think about that question?
Well, some of the questions I like to submit sometimes, I just know guys have chat, and for whatever reason, they just don't submit them. And so I feel like sometimes I would like to submit the questions that guys want to know. It made me think about it because you've seen teams win with lesser quarterbacks, but you've seen some owners in like the Patriots who had a dominant quarterback in Tom Brady. And I hate that, Tom Brady led him, it just – you see a difference between some people when they go from a Tom Brady. He struggled a little bit this year with his new quarterback, which is something that I think is expected to happen. You can't go from Tom Brady to Tom Savage, and I know his quarterback's not Tom Savage, without a little bit of drop off.
Yeah.
But you see some people. I personally don't take a lot of pride in having a stud quarterback. Now it is really nice, and it's a luxury to have. Like I have Andrew Luck. It's a luxury to have somebody like that because you can see the difference in teams that, in my opinion, that need a quarterback. And then some of these teams, I'll use for example, I'll name somebody that doesn't need a stud quarterback to be dominant, and that is Big Hurt, in my opinion. I think he can play with a 75, 80 overall quarterback, just the way he plays his game and plays pretty solid. And he actually can play out of the box with his 75, 80 overall quarterback, and that's where I look at somebody different between me and Big Hurt in that aspect. Because I look at somebody like me, I usually do by about the fourth or fifth season play with an average quarterback because I just can't afford to pay one. As I play within my little box with my quarterback, and I keep everything. I know my limitations, and a Big Hurt pushes the limitations with a 75, 80 overall quarterback, and is successful with it. And I would like to hear y'all's input on that. Somebody like me, you guys know that I don't like I said, I don't feel like I have to have a 95 overall quarterback. Or like I said, Andrew Luck is such a luxury to me, and it's going to be hard for me to ever push him out of the quarterback helm right now. It's so nice to have a good quarterback, and I'd just like to know y'all's thoughts on that.
Dawson, what do you think? Do you need a big-time quarterback?
Well, I think even I could use Aaron Rodgers, and I'll still throw an average of 3 picks a game.
I do it with Drew Brees.
Alex Smith, I used him last year, and I threw picks left and right. He was a solid guy. He still is. And then, I kind of switched. I traded for Dak, and I'm still throwing picks. So I kind of lost on this trade. I feel like I have. I'm glad I didn't give up a first or a top talented player that had a good contract for it. It was an experiment, and I kind of failed on it because right now he's asking for 4 years, $74 million. So now it comes to where I gotta decide if I want to pay him $20 million a year and still throw interceptions, or try to just get a more of a mediocre quarterback that can just for a little bit less than $20 million a year. So it's kind of like Dakota was saying, some guys can win without having a star-studded quarterback. I think if I had a star-studded quarterback, I'll still lose, still throw the interceptions. It kind of goes back to even when I first started. I had Jared Goff. Yeah, he wasn't great, but I was still throwing. Still wasn't terrible, or still wasn't good as far as, like Dakota was saying, some guys, they can just consistently win without having that top talented quarterback there, because they just know the right plays to call at the right time, know how to coach adjustments and et cetera. So yeah, I think
that sounds like some shots fired if I've ever heard them.
Anyways, what I was just I don't know. It's kind of hard, just the way. Now you got lost my train of thought. But yeah, I do have Dak. He is 82 overall, and I think we'll still try to win with him. But as I guess the overall, I don't think it really matters from my point, just because the way I play, and then I might be wrong. Maybe I do need somebody like a Tom Brady or Drew Brees, and maybe I can actually throw those accurate when I try to throw those outs or some of those passing routes, those deep passing routes, I can actually throw them a little bit more accurate. And maybe that's what it is I'm just doing mediocre quarterbacks. I'm thinking they're good, like Smith and Dak. And just kind of backfires on me at the end of the season.
Yeah, you're going to hear me say something that you'll probably hear me just say a lot, especially on this show with some of these other questions, but also just kind of life. I think it's balance, right? I think that having an elite quarterback will allow you to make some of those throws that maybe are not the best decisions, but you still complete them. They'll help you make those crucial third and long throws when you're trying to throw the out, the comeback, the post, into tight coverage. Those elite quarterbacks will make that throw more consistently than a guy who isn't an elite quarterback. But at the same time, I think that it would be remiss to not acknowledge the fact that all quarterbacks play kind of the same. I think, again, elite quarterbacks will play elite more consistent, and your non-elite quarterbacks will have more consistent inconsistencies, but overall, good or bad quarterbacks don't stop you from pressing buttons and making bad decisions. And if you're going to make bad decisions, you're going to make that with an elite quarterback or a non-elite quarterback. I think the difference, the balance that comes into play, again, I think Dwayne can win with any quarterback because he's just efficient with his use of his quarterback. He's going to make more consistently right choices than the normal user. And someone like me, for instance, right, needs a more often than not more of an elite quarterback, which is why I'm going Breeze one more year to give my guy who's next up in line another year to develop. And even now, I'm kind of questioning, should I go with the younger kid because he has a little bit extra things. Look, I even tried to trade for Josh Allen, and I got blown off pretty quickly just because I think he's got the tools to be the perfect quarterback that I want. He's Hamlin as a real life player. Hamlin was my quarterback in Madden 18 that I kept for forever and ever and ever, and he helped me win some games. But I think I need a guy that will help cover up some of my bad decisions because I do press it at times. I do make bad decisions, and having an elite quarterback bails me out of those bad decisions more so than somebody who makes the same amount of bad decisions but doesn't have an elite quarterback who doesn't bail them out as much. And I hope that kind of makes sense. But I do think that depending on your playing style, will answer that question, but it is a balance. His next question was, what positions do you put your stock into? Where do you invest your team's money into position-wise? I think this is a super interesting question, and I'll kick it off, and then Dawson, I'd love to hear your thoughts before we kick it back over to Wayne. But to me, and this is hard, right? I think my knee jerk, right, how can I put this? If you ask me this question just about my knee jerk, like what comes to mind, what do I want to be when I want to be a GM? Like I want to put the money into the flashy positions. I want to put the money into the quarterback. I want to put the money into the running back. I want to put the money into the linebackers and the cornerbacks, right? I want those flashy skill positions with a lot of athleticism. That's where I want to invest my money. Now, I feel like over the 20 years of playing Madden and also like just playing football for my entire life, I've changed that. Now, Madden 18, it did not work nearly as well for me because I think that they dumbed down the offensive line. I feel like it's better in Madden 19, but I think games are won in the trenches. That's why, like when I hear people, for instance, say, could Alabama go beat the Raiders? So the answer is no. I don't think any college team could ever beat an NFL team because games are won in the trenches, and those are grown men who are fully grown into their bodies, not college kids who are still grown into their bodies, and the NFL team would dominate on both lines and just toy with the kids that are in front of them, and because of that, the NFL team would dominate any great college team. Same is true for Madden. I think that the money should be invested up front. I mean, look, I went out and spent money on some guards just as backup positions, just to have some guys that I can lean on, and then the defensive line. That's where I want to really invest my money. I think linebackers is one of those positions where you can get away with underpaying a kid that can come in and make plays for you. Cornerback is a position I think in Madden that you should pay for too. I think that is a Madden position, at least in Madden 19 as I think through, that you need to pay. Quarterback, we already talked about. Running back, like all those other. Wide receiver is one I've always, my entire Madden career, until things change, I will always think that you can win with 72 overall wide receivers. I just do. If they have the right stats, they have the right catch, they have the right speed, you can win with them. They're going to get open, and you can win with lower rated wide receivers. You guys seen what I did with Forbes. He was a 72 overall wide receiver when I got him, and he's in the Hall of Fame, right? And I built him up, and I'm doing that again with my new kid that I got. So I understand football enough to know you should invest your money into that offensive and defensive line. But if there were another position that I would add to that, I think in Madden 19 it's cornerback. Dawson, what are your thoughts about where you should invest your money?
Yeah, same to you. I like to throw the money in the defensive line, mostly because, like you said, the battle of trenches, and I try to be flashy, and I always fail, and I'll try to go for those speedy receivers, those top talented receivers or top talented running backs, and try to go for them. But at the end of the day, I can't use them as far as their full effect. So I usually kind of focus on the offensive line, try to build them up. As far as the stock wise or draft wise, I drafted 3 offensive linemen, and I got all 3 of them starting. So I'm hoping I can build those up. I'm building them up so they can be a solid line for the next couple seasons. Like you said, linebackers. Sometimes I do favor. I get the real life players when in free agency, and that does kind of bite me in the butt sometimes when I overpay. I see somebody that I want, and I kind of overpay. And I think that's everybody. There's a few that they don't care any about that. I guess feelings I get on that stuff, but sometimes you want to, if you want to lose, you want to play with guys that you like, and you want to go with that. But overall, I think I go with offensive line. And you mentioned something about difference between Madden 18 and Madden 19. The contract years, to me, I feel like they fixed that, because now quarterbacks, they're wanting money. What quarterbacks are asking for in NFL, like. So same thing for Dak. I think last year he probably only wanted like 4 years, maybe 35-40 million, but now this year they fixed that, and he wants near almost 80 million. And same thing with a lineman. Got a few receivers that are like that. I had to let Jameson Crowder go because he wanted I think 4 or 5 years, 40 million. last season. So, but yeah, if I had to say any, I guess a particular position, I would like to go with offensive line, just because I like to just stick to, stick to what I'm good at or okay at, and a lot of times that fall into running, and of course, if you want to run the ball, you got to have a good offensive line.
Wayne, what do you think about your own question? Where do you like to invest your money?
Well, I think y'all said a lot of it when it comes to invest front. I think you got to, I guess the way I look at it, I invest in, when I say defensive line, I like defensive tackles. I hate to say big hog molly defensive tackles, but I like big guys. I like, the Gilbert Browns, the Chris Jones. I don't know, Dakota, you're a Packers fan. You remember big Gilbert Brown.
I remember Gilbert Brown.
But I like a big body in the middle, and kind of like a Vince Wilfork, a big body guy who can clog that lane, and if worst case, it bumps that running back to where he don't get a free lane. I like offensive line. I think offensive line is a lot more rare this time, which honestly, I hate to say it's more realistic because you don't have the studs everywhere.
Yep.
In real life, like I would say like we did the last cycle. And I think teams really found out this offseason you had a lot of overpaid offensive line because people really needed it. But you almost got just as good of the offensive lines, 5th, 6th, 7th round in the draft that I think some guys really took advantage of. I picked a couple linemen up in the 7th round that aren't much worse than my starters. Or I say starters, but kind of like you said, Nate, you got to have depth at the offensive line too. Because I traded for a guard this last week from Tennessee to bring some, extra punch in that line. Second play of the game, he got hurt against Bill for 6 weeks. And if I didn't have that depth behind him, if you didn't invest in that offensive line, you'd be royally screwed, honestly, to say it nicely. But I think, and everybody knows I invest in safeties. I feel like safety's your last line of defense. I have 12 of them on my roster, I think. And I'm not really joking. Kate kind of tried to poach a few of them from me the other day. But I believe in safeties. Your last line defense are very universal players. But I like to invest up front. I like to invest in that middle defensive line. Like I said, I can deal with a defensive end that's moderate per se, as long as I have some hog mollies in the middle. And I think you said it well, Nate, when you said you can get away with that linebacker because I think you have some specialty linebackers. You can have a solid linebacker who's low to mid 70s to stop the run. And you can sub one in, especially with their new system, a sub linebacker who's a coverage linebacker. And I don't think you have to break the bank when I say like I'm not sure, Dakota. I think Clay Matthews might have played linebacker earlier in his career. But somebody like him, I don't think you have to pay $10, $12 million for a linebacker anymore. I know that Brady showed us that Kratos was well worth the money he paid him. But that was a very peculiar position there. But, I like to invest up front. I like to invest in my offensive line. And I do think, like you said, Nate, if you can get away with not paying superstar receivers, but I will tell you this, it's really nice to have a superstar receiver if you can afford to pay him. You look at somebody like I have Hilton. Hilton's the best receiver I've had since Julio Jones. And Hilton is just a great receiver. He's not super fast. He's 92 speed, give or take a little bit, I think. But he gets open. He makes catches. It's really nice to have those guys. But we've seen, Houday a few seasons ago, he just went all speed. Didn't care about the rating, and he was willing to take shots down the field. And for some people that works. For me, man, that hurts. If I throw I'd have a heart attack throwing the ball down the field like that. But like I said, I would love to, this to be a community-wide question in our league. I would love to hear guys' inputs. That's why, I try to ask these questions that I see people talk about in the chat all week. Yeah. And I feel like, guys, I wanted to repost your thing the other day about submitting a question because this is something that we like to talk about, and I would love to hear other people's, opinions on it too.
Yep. Let's. We're over an hour already, so I don't want to take all of the third question. But let's get to the last part of that. Is what did we think about the offseason as a whole, good and bad, and just kind of overall. And Dwayne, it's your question, so we're going to toss it over to you and let you get us started. And Dawson, I'd like to hear your thoughts before I give mine, and we get to our last question.
I think this offseason really revolved around some teams spending excessive for need and some teams were really bargain bin shopping. I think you looked at somebody like I look at somebody like Mo. I look at somebody like Colin. Teams that are established teams that if they, I hate to say they got their guys, but they know what they're going for and they're not going to overpay for it. You look at somebody like Big Hurt. He really needed a running back, and he'll even said in his podcast last night that he overpaid for Ajayi. And then I look at Fowler. I can't remember who got Fowler, but I know Fowler got paid, and he got paid for need. Somebody needed that position, and you had to pay for it. And that's just the way it works. Even in real life, Madden, it works like that. It works. Just you pay for need. And some people pay for it a little more than one. I look at somebody like Priest, not taking shots at Priest, but Priest has a open-ended checkbook when it comes to free agency.
Always.
And when Priest wants a guy, he's going to get a guy. If you were a player, you would love to play for Priest because Priest is going to pay you. And I just think that's where I look at this offseason. I look at some teams really paid, some teams bargain bin. I think that was the main outlier. I think the draft was great. I think some people picked up, especially about that top 25 picks, I think people picked up game changers.
Yeah.
And I think some guys are really excited. I look at Kevin, the number 1 overall pick. You got the guy you need to get. You got a game changer quarterback, a guy who can lead your team the rest of the cycle, maybe into the next cycle if he's still young enough. I think that's where I look at it. And like I said, my main outlier, some teams paid because they had to pay, and you want to win. I know that you want to win now, and some teams are willing to pay for it. Some teams are willing to take that two extremes. Like I said, Mo is a bargain bin shopper who's not going to spend a whole lot. You've seen 40-point bids on him in the first round. Mo is not going to outbid himself. But somebody and I can't knock it. The 49ers paid for Ajayi. You can't knock it. He's Super Bowl champ. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt that he knew he needed a running back, and he went and got it. And if he wins another Super Bowl, I promise you he'll tell you that. I think he said last night $14 million a year was well worth it.
Yep. I think it was a super deep draft, too. You hit on the draft a little bit. Like, guys were still getting – I got 75 overall players in the 6th round, right? Dawson, what do you think about the offseason as a whole?
Yeah, kind of like Dakota was saying, some guys were spending a lot. Others was bargain shopping. For me, I was kind of a mix of both. I didn't really try to get anybody spend a lot of money. I think I had a bid on a tackle, Jake Fisher, and Priest was actually winning by points. So we're showing 93 points, and I think it was 93-90 or something like that. I ended up getting him. So
same thing happened to me.
Yeah. So I didn't actually. I guess I was going to let Priest have him, but I was going to leave my bid on there. And I actually am getting him.
I did the exact same thing. I had a guard that I was like, I'm already over what I wanted to pay, but I'm going to leave my bid. I'm not going to just give it to you so you can then drop your bid. And so then I went and put on just the bid that the next guard was asking for, so I could make sure I left with a guard, and I won both of those suckers.
Yeah. Yeah, same for me on that. And draft wise, I think I had 8 or 9 picks, and 6 of them were starting on my team. So I felt like overall my draft was decent enough. So all of my guys, all that I drafted, they're on the 53-man roster. So I'm hoping down the road I can build those up. Off season, trade wise, I actually traded more than I have in the past. I still got one more trade piece, so another plug. I still got the offensive line, so if anybody needs anybody, just holler at me. But yeah, I've seen a few trades out there, and kind of like Dakota was saying, there was some that was spinning a lot just because they have it, and maybe it's going to hurt them come down the road, 2 or 3 more seasons when they don't have that enough cap space to fill the roster, or they see those top talented guys that's in free agency, because the way it always is, you always have that rookie class that they're always not everybody's going to be able to sign everybody. You're going to let them walk, and that's going to leave a lot of those. Some of the free agency start getting, top heavy later in the seasons, and then that if anybody can plan and manage their cap space, they will be at least in the front runner as far as who they want and how much they're willing to spend for those players.
Yep. I thought I was going to sneeze, and I am not going to sneeze. I was able to hold it back, so thank you for everybody for that. I thought it was a great offseason. I have a hard time keeping up when it comes to free agency. There's just so much that I have to do. I just can never keep up with free agency, but it seemed like there were some guys that were paying big money, but overall, free agency seemed to be pretty quiet. The first season sometimes can be that way. I think it'll pick up as we progress here. Doesn't seem to be a ton of people that are coming to me with more than 3-5-year contracts, which means that we'll probably see a lot of good players in the free agency in the next couple seasons. And this season there was a couple, but a couple of older players, and so I think that's why we didn't see a ton of money being spent. I thought the draft was superb. I thought the draft was really strong in some areas, really, really deep in some areas. You were able to get good players in the 5th, 6th, 7th round if you were doing your draft board right. But as always, the OMFL guys do their homework, and there wasn't a ton of like really superstar, like great potential guys after the first round. They were pretty much all scooped up. Overall, I thought it was a really strong, smooth, just even keel off season. Again, I can't keep up with trades, but it seemed like guys are definitely doing their business. And I thought it was a really, really strong off season for us. Let's get to the last question before we put a bow on the show. Duvall says, how do you feel about the new weekly player development point system embedded into this version of Madden? Are you seeing core players develop as quickly as previous Madden? I'll give my thoughts first, and I'll kick it over to Dawson. I think that no, you're not seeing players develop as you've seen in previous Maddens, and I think that is a really, really good thing. Mm-hmm. I think we can all admit seeing the team that Mo was able to build with the Seahawks last Madden, where he won 4 straight Super Bowls, was ridiculous. And even with our XP system turned back and turned down, he was still able to do that. I love that guys can't pile up points and throw it all in one attribute. I love that. I'll never not love that. I love that it's a little random. And yeah, you may get 3 points, you may get 8 points, but I love that random portion of it. I love the system that we came up with where we actually kill the off-season award points and we give them to you in realistic points in league vote instead of in-game vote. I think that I messed up that system this past season because I forgot to turn it off before I advanced to the playoffs, but I think overall it still worked out really, really well. More people were able to get awarded. We were able to spread those points. In game, one guy may have got like 6 dice rolls for winning an award, but even though we didn't give away that many XP, we were able to spread it around to more people. And so more people had an opportunity with the Pro Bowl votes, first team, second team, and other things to be able to build their guys. Which reminds me that I got points to spend. I totally forgot about that. So I got to go spend my points and my players because I got a rough schedule coming up. So I do love the system. Yes, it is much harder. I've been trying to build a backup quarterback for 2 seasons now, and I don't think I've gotten 1 dice roll in 2 seasons because he's not playing, right? And he's just getting what I get in normal development and focus training. I think it's a really good system. I love the way it is. Yes, it's harder in some areas, as it should be. But Dawson, what do you think about the new XP system that Madden 19 gave us?
Yeah, I agree. It is hard. More random, and it helps reduce like we all did it where we save the points and we spend it all on one attribute, and now we can't do that. It's random. And as far as the core players, I try to build them up, and like you said, a few dice. Some guys haven't got 1 dice roll yet, and that might be just the way that I have the team and I'm doing the training and all that. But yeah, it's pretty random, and I guess right now, to actually give the owner the chance to put the points where they want to put it at. It's more as being more involved as far as to the league, content-wise. It kind of helps with incentives, and it does kind of help overall league-wise. Being, I guess, more involved, and guys are not able to, like you said, at the end of the season, use those loads of XP and just steadily, can use them on a set attribute and then not even worry. They have, I think, last couple of seasons we used to have, guys. Well, before we put the ban on the speed and acceleration. You used to have fast receivers, but they're dumb as a box of rocks, because we all knew that awareness didn't really do anything for receivers, the way you play them and all that. But yeah, I do like it, and it's a little bit more random. It's kind of harder to get those dice rolls, but I haven't got one of those those loads where some guys were getting like 2 or 3, and I haven't got those yet. I'll just begin with the small increases.
D-Wayne, XP system.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, I got caught up. I was watching the Texans Bucks game. Yeah, I think it's more realistic now. I think, like you said, you focus train 3 guys. Most backups don't go from backups to studs in 2 years, unless they're getting significant playing time. I think you can look at somebody like DJ Moore, for example, of somebody who was the younger guy, got forced into playing time, made some plays, and he reaped the benefits for it. If you're willing to put a young guy in and reap the growing pains and suffer through that and all that stuff, I think you will benefit from the XP system helping you. But like I said, it's not going to be handed to you as it was before, where you could just focus train and and I'm not taking knocks at Mo when I say that, but he did it all within the rules the right way, XP wise. It was just he found a way that was working, and Mo had one of the most dominant teams we've ever seen. Mo probably didn't have to show up and play any games. This team would have won the championship. And like I said, I'm not knocking. I give a lot of props to the way he built that team. He just found a way to do it and worked. And I think it's just more realistic this way. I think it keeps the playing field a lot more level. I think when you draft a star, he's a star. And when you draft a guy in the 5th, 6th round, he might be a good player, but he probably will never be a star like that first overall pick was, which for the 99% of the time is how it should be. And like I said, I think it keeps the playing field level, keeps it more realistic, and it keeps to where you have to decide where you're going to focus train your guys and et cetera.
Yep, I 1,000% agree with you. I think it's a good thing for the league as a whole, and I think it's just it's not as easy, but it's not supposed to be, and I think that overall it's a really, really good thing for us as a whole, and long term it's going to be a good thing for the long term success, and I think that's what I'm most interested in. Not to beat this dead horse, I think I'm most interested in what do we look like when we're in season 6, right? And because I know what we looked like last year in season 6 of that Madden. I'm interested to see where we're at this time. So that's it. We're going to put a bow on the show. As always, let me make my unabashed push for all of our different things that we do here in the community. Oh, I almost forgot one last little session, and that is our Around the Leagues session. Let me give you a quick update from all the other Madden leagues. Now, the Grown Folks Online community is a community of many different leagues, many different games. It all started with our flagship program, the OMFL, which is going to be 22 years old here in a couple of months. That was the baby that started this, and out of it has grown many, many different leagues, 4 different Madden leagues, a wrestling league, a NASCAR league, a bunch of shooters, Red Dead, soccer, I know I'm forgetting some, basketball. There's all kinds of stuff. We have all kinds of leagues here now and growing. There's even other leagues who are wanting to bring their leagues over to our community. So we always like to have a session where we talk about the other 3 main Madden leagues here. The first one's going to come from the TFL, the Football League. He says the Jaguars won the Super Bowl 30-27 over the Chicago Bears. The game was controlled by the Jags, but the Bears came back to put up 27 points in a miraculous fourth quarter, almost to win the whole thing. The victory by the Jags highlights a season where 3 AFC South teams went 9-7, all to make the playoffs. He says the offseason is underway, and while there isn't a ton of franchise-changing players on the market, there's a lot of talent around the league, most notably at halfback. With a lack of offensive linemen in free agency, it should mean that the draft should be very offensive lineman heavy. And then finally, he says with the draft being this coming Sunday, there's many coaching staffs looking to make a big impact for next season. One of the most interesting stories from the draft seems to be the lack of defensive talent available, but quite a deep offensive pool. With offenses being an issue last season, we will see how the new talent can help their teams as they moved into the new season. From the NBC, the Madden Ballers Club, and my good friend, Mr. P. Dizzle, he says the Eagles end the Lions' 23-game, yes, you heard that, friends, 23-game winning streak. So congrats to the Eagles for beating those Lions. The Bucks, the Saints, the Falcons are all battling for first place with one game separating each of them in Week 11. And then finally, the Vikings boast the best defense, only allowing 244 total yards per game. So the Vikings Purple People Eaters looks to be back in the NBC. And then finally, our good buddy, our pal, Mr. Chaotic, who runs the OMFL2, says, I fell asleep last night and I didn't get you these updates. But you know what? He got them to me before the show, and that's all that matters. He says that they're in the second stage of the off-season free agent bidding process for Season 2 in the OMFL, Season 8 overall. The Ravens won the Super Bowl of their inaugural Madden 19 season for Season 7, and then teams are starting to fill up again during the offseason. 3 new owners have joined since the Super Bowl has been played, leaving us with just 12 spots left to fill before the season starts. And I know that we're having 2 new guys that should be joining here in the next 48 hours. And so exciting times in all these leagues. I think all of these leagues have openings. We're definitely trying to fill up the OMFL2. And so if you want to bring your talents over to the OMFL2, it very much is its own league. It is not what we would call a development league. We're not like sending lesser talent there. It has nothing to do with that. We do call up from the OMFL2 to get into the OMFL. It was a thing that was created for owners who wanted 2 leagues but didn't want different rules, didn't want to leave the community. The OMFL2 gave them that option, and it gave us an option to send waiting list people so that they actually didn't have to wait. They could immediately start to play, and we could kind of work through any gameplay issues or kind of get their feet wet so that we could call up only the best of the best. If you're in the OMFL2 and you watch our show, please remember, we look to move up the guy with the best FPR, the most activity in chat and content. It looks like Mr. Tim is going to be the next guy that moves up. We're hoping that he stays in the OMFL2, though, because he is part of their leadership, and hopefully he'll be able to handle 2 leagues and give them a hand. So that's your updates around the league. Now, my shameless plug time. Our website, grownfolksoc.com. There's been so much content. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but we keep the Madden Accord full for content. We've been on their spotlight for a couple of times now, but there's so much content. There's 4 or 5 different articles from all the leagues, the OMFL2, the NBC, the TFL, and of course the OMFL. There's tons and tons of content. Please go check that out. GrownFolksOC.com. The Grown Folks Wrestling Company is about to put out a new show. Their new card is dropping this week. So new content's going to be coming from them as they've prepared for WWE 2K19. Do miss my buddy Dawson, Mr. Jack Thunder. I'm just going to throw that out there. Follow us on Twitter, GrownFolksOC. Lots of tweets. We post all of our content. Everything that you need to find needs to go here. It will go here from all the different leagues. We like to retweet stuff that we see from the Madden community just to support all the different stuff that's out there. So please give us a follow. We'll follow you back. I don't care who you are. It doesn't bother me. If you give us a follow, we'll give you a follow back. Our website on YouTube, youtube.com/C/GrownFolksOC. I know you don't see that in the header right here, right now, because it's actually under my old name, but Grown Folks OC will still help you find it. You can also search Grown Folks Online Community. That'll help you find it. Give us a subscribe. We also will subscribe right back to you. We don't care who you are. We'll trade subscriptions, but we put out tons and tons of content. Everything that I stream goes on here. I don't always talk on everything, but I have been trying to talk a whole lot more on my streams, and so I'll chit-chat with you as I kind of play through some stuff. And then finally, Grown Folks OC on Twitch. Grown Folks OC, Twitch.tv/Grown Folks OC. all of our content from this is also on Twitch. We also host all the streams from our community members. So from golf to wrestling to OMFL to Red Dead to NASCAR to H1Z1. If we're not streaming straight on YouTube, usually if I'm not talking, I'm going to stream them on Twitch, so that's where you can see our content where I'm not talking. You're just seeing gameplay. If you want to hear us talk, usually that's going to be streamed straight on YouTube. We do transfer this over to YouTube, and I can breathe because I'm done. Give us a follow. Give us a like. We will follow, like, subscribe right back. Thanks so much. Guys, let's put a bow on the show. D-Wayne, closing thoughts.
Oh, man, it was a good show. I'm excited for the rest of the season. Like you said, man, we've grown enormously as a community, and I think it's only going to get bigger. And I'm ready to knock this last night of workout, or not last night, but Saturday night of workout.
And go Tigers. Go ahead, Dawson. Give me your closing thoughts. Put a bow on it.
Yeah, doing pretty good as far as the gold sheet. We got a total of 8 owners. We could do better. We got 8 owners that have placed a bid. A few, sorry, Bill, but couldn't get that +1, so you lost $150. But he's still in it. He's got $50. But overall, we're calling he busted the first week. So, but yeah, we could do better. More owners, but I'm sure we'll get more later in the season. And but yeah, play clean and I guess go Hogs since they're having a bye week. Yeah, no letdown this week.
Come on, you could give me at least one go Tigers.
Next week, go Hogs next week.
Okay, go Hogs next week. Tigers. Yeah. Well, we'll see how that works out for you. It hasn't worked out the last couple of years, so you never know. If Bama beats up on us and we go in there limping, so you never know what's going to happen. They probably won't suspend our linebacker for your game. At least you got that going for you. Yeah. Look, I'm super excited about all the guys being added to the community. I want to get the rest of these leagues full. I'm doing my part. This Madden's been tough to find players. I don't know if it's because Red Dead has been such a hit that guys have just kind of given up. But look, we're going still strong. If you're looking for a community that is content-based, look no further because we are your place to come and be a part of it. I appreciate both of you guys. I'm sorry that we missed Maniac. That was my fault. I didn't get back home from running my errands till late. But we're here. We got a great show out to go along with the 5th quarter. Make sure you go watch all these shows. I'm going to throw this out there. I'm going to float it out there. But there is a fantasy football point system that is built into Daddy Leagues. Oh, the new Daddy Leagues page is coming out soon, too. Forgot to tell you guys that. The next 2 or 3 weeks, I expect that'll be live, and you'll see the new Daddy Leagues page. But there's a new fantasy section on there, and it would be awesome if somebody would figure out a way to do a very cut down fantasy type game system like we have with the Gold Sheet. It just would be a fun little new content that guys could do. Again, it's so easy to do content. It's there. It's for you. You just got to be the one who organizes it and puts it all together. And I will also, a little later this afternoon, try to do a hot seat. I haven't done one of those in 2 weeks. And hint, hint, Mr. Wayne and Dawson, I'd love to see Game of the Week come back. I know I haven't had the time to do them, but I heard that you guys may have the time to do them, and D. Wayne was trying to give up on it, but I'm encouraging him to pick it back up because I'd love to see Game of the Week come back and see you two guys doing that. So, hey, for all the leadership here in the OMFL, all the leadership here in Grown Folks, thank you so much for watching our show. Have a great weekend. Go Tigers, go Saints, hoot at. We'll see you next time. God bless.
Go Cowboys.